Hi there, I'm Kate de Jong, and I'm very honoured to be on the Do Yourself a Favour podcast today with Tam to share the upcoming launch of our book, The Wisdumb Way, which is a simple path to developing self-awareness and emotional intelligence. It's a passion project of mine. I loved the conversation with Tam, and I hope you do too. I hope that this becomes a pathway for you to become one of the unicorns. Only 10 to 15% of all people actually are self-aware, it appears, according to the research. So our book is a simple guide to becoming a unicorn yourself. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome back to Do Yourself a Favour. I'm very happy and excited to have my friend and colleague, Kate de Jong, here today. And it's particularly exciting because we're going to talk about her upcoming book that I know nothing about. Welcome, Kate.
Hi, Tam. So good to be back in the studio with you.
Oh, yeah, it's lovely. We were saying it's actually one of the only ways we get to have a conversation is by recording a podcast.
That's right. But actually works for us because we like deep and meaningful conversations. So.
We really do. It's a very good 2-for-1. So I said we were going to talk about this book, and this is literally news to me. I love the title. I love the subtitle. And what we're going to do is I'm going to literally ask you questions as someone that knows nothing about it. And hopefully it'll help people in the audience who are watching or listening go, oh, that sounds like a book for me, right? Or not. Either is good.
Or not.
Yeah, either is good.
Yeah.
I had a boyfriend when I was very young, and his flatmate used to say, I watch trailers, or as they were called then, previews. And he goes, really, what it tells me is what I don't want to watch as a movie. Right?
Correct, yeah.
So let's have a talk. So I'm going to read off my notes. So the new book is going to be called The Wisdumb. I'll spell wisdom in a moment, way, a simple path to emotional intelligence through the power of paradox. So I'll say that again, The Wisdumb Way, a simple path to emotional intelligence through the power of paradox. You have written it in conjunction with James Brydon, who's an EQ expert from Perth, and Mauro Davide, who's a relationship counsellor from Perth. And we hope it's going to be coming out late this year. Ideally, we're hoping for October.
That's it, yeah.
This year.
That's the plan.
All right, so let me spell wisdom, which you can kind of hear as I'm saying it, Wisdumb. It's actually important that I spell any pronunciations, Kate, because do you know I have more listeners in America than I do in Australia.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's amazing, exciting, unexpected, and I have to be respectful of accent differences, don't I?
That's right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
All right, so what can you tell me about it? I could tell you what I could make up about it, but to be honest, I know so little I wouldn't even be able to make up an interesting story. So why don't you tell me what the book is about?
Yeah, well, maybe a bit of backstory because the whole topic of self-awareness and emotional intelligence has been a passion project of mine for a very long time, ever since I sort of went through my own dark night of the soul that we've talked on a previous episode together. And coming out of that, I realised I didn't really know myself very well. And there's a very fascinating statistic that might blow your mind if you haven't heard it before. But if you go into a room and you say to everyone, who in this room thinks they're self-aware? 95% of people in the room will put their hand up. The actual truth is only 10 to 15% of all people are actually self-aware, according to research.
Wow.
And that's because we all have blind spots. We all have things about ourselves that we don't see clearly, but other people see. And that's bridging that gap, becoming one of the rare. There's a research scientist called Dr Tasha Eurich, and she went deep on this topic and did a TED talk, and she calls the people who actually are self-aware, she calls them unicorns because they are so rare. And the majority of us are walking around thinking we're self-aware, but we don't really understand our own blind spots or see ourselves clearly or see how other people are perceiving us. And I just find that really fascinating because I experience it every day when you're dealing with people, when you run into behavioural conflicts and you start recognising, wow, I don't think that person is aware of the impact they're having on me or these people. Or, you know, you can see that lack of self-awareness around you. And yeah, so for me it was twofold. It was, it's hard to know where to start, but there is what we call internal self-awareness, which is how you understand yourself, your values, your strengths, the things that you want, love, your desires, the things you don't want, that's sort of internal self-awareness. Then you've got what they call external self-awareness, which is you're aware of how other people perceive you. And those two things need to be equal in order for you to be truly self-aware. And I'll give you an example. So I first did a 360-degree assessment. Have you done one of those?
I have, yeah.
And you do that through your training company, don't you? Help people
We will do a behavioural profile called the DISC model.
Oh, yeah.
It's much less 360 than purely noticing what one's own behavioural aspects are. Myself personally, I've done numerous in different corporate roles or in different roles that I've had, including Herman brain dominance, which is a psychometric as well, the LSI.
Yes, that's the one that I did.
That one's very interesting in numerous ways. And then I've also, within a company when I was much younger, they ran a 360 feedback program. And what I remember from it was I was quite surprised about one element of my profile. And I remember my then manager was very distressed in terms of what feedback they got. They didn't debrief it very well and they were left very, very upset. And I distinctly remember that pain and thinking, oh, this person needs more support with the results they got.
It can be brutal. And I remember crying when I got my report. And what it does, the LSI, which I think is why it's such a strong tool, is it's like a circle, isn't it? And it shows you how you've assessed yourself, red, blue, green, positive behaviours, passive-aggressive behaviours and aggressive behaviours. And, all of us think we have lots of blue, not much green and not much red. And so that's your self-perception. And then you get your colleagues to assess you. I had three above me, two on the same level as me, and my 7 staff that reported to me.
Yes.
And I remember getting that report back. And as I said, when I saw the circle, it did not match the one that I had. And it had lots of green, which is the passive-aggressive behaviours, which is seeking validation, seeking approval, not having the confidence to make your own decisions. And I was just shocked that this is how people were perceiving me in the workplace. And, I remember the heat rising in my face, the tears welling in my eyes. And then you have a choice in that moment. It's like, okay, I can either get defensive and say that these people don't know me or that they're just, they don't actually understand me. Or you can have a whole story about why that feedback is not accurate.
Yes.
Or you can say, okay, I need to get curious about this because there's something here that I need to see that I'm not seeing. And if people are perceiving me that way and I'm perceiving myself that way, there's a gap there. And that's the journey of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. And I suppose we should say, why is this important? Why would we bother writing a book about this? And that's because the evidence clearly shows now, and you would know this as well, the research all around the world, emotionally intelligent, self-aware people are more successful, they're happier, they're more peaceful, they have better relationships, they get promoted more quickly, they make more money. Like there's just so many reasons why a self-aware person does better in life.
Yes.
The ones that aren't self-aware struggle.
Yes.
And the people around them struggle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Not only is there success available for the person who has the EQ and self-awareness, but the lack of damage is incredibly important in this story, right?
That's right. It's how, and I suppose that's being a mother, and you would have had this as well. When you become a mother, you really want to know what your negative behavioural patterns are, because growing up, I know you and I and all of us are on the receiving end of negative behavioural patterns.
Yeah.
And we know how the negative effects they can have on us, whether it's insecurities or negative self-perception or unworthiness and I didn't want my kids being on the receiving end of my toxic patterns, if you know what I mean. So that was a big driver for me to want to become more self-aware. And also just I was fascinated as soon as I heard that statistic that, only 10 to 15% of all people are self-aware. It's like, wow, that's a lot. That's a big gap. And how do you then, and so then the question became, so how do you become self-aware and emotionally intelligent?
Yeah.
And I laughed. I was talking to a colleague earlier this week, and he's very left brain. He's a SEO specialist, and And I told him about the book, and he said, he had a laugh, and he said, all I know is the more emotional I get, the less intelligent I become. And so some people poo-poo the whole concept of emotional intelligence, self-awareness.
Yeah.
But I think they also underestimate, there is that potential impact that you're having on other people without being aware of it. And
yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come up for me as you tell that part of the story, that the impact on other people. I think one of the things that I have been better at is self-awareness, as you called internal self-awareness, but I've had to learn, and I'm still learning very much, the difference between my intention and impact.
Yes.
And as you told that part of the story, because originally I had myself like, I was like, I'm a unicorn. And then you went, hang on. I went, hang on. I think my intention and impact still, I think there's a lot to learn there.
Yes.
What that made me also think is of the person who considers themselves spiritual or an empath.
Yes.
I say with great respect. But the reason I'm laughing is, that they have an awareness to an extent of themselves, but there is really very little understanding as to how they behave with others.
Exactly.
I've seen very simple examples, people that would consider themselves great spiritual leaders, and if I have a meal with them, they'll be rude to the waiter, and I'll go, whoa, you're missing part of the story.
Some of the greatest spiritual leaders are the most dysfunctional people, and they've been abusive. And
Absolutely. I had Stephen Bodie in here, my great hero in the direct approach, and he had an interview on his podcast recently with a lady out of America, Anne Marie. They were talking about the unusualness of someone not, as he would call it, spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
And for anyone listening who has been a seeker, has been wanting to learn and understand about life and themselves, personally, I can see this journey has been wanting to feel better, wanting to be better, but actually the piece of the puzzle where a lot of people won't go is the work that Lockie Samuel does and has done with me, where you actually come back to yourself, look at yourself, heal what's happening within yourself, so you're not bypassing the part that actually is the thing that causes all the pain to yourself and others.
That's right.
You don't try and gloss over it.
That's right. You've got to unpack it, look at it, heal it, and then move forward. You can't just skim over the top.
It's kind of, for me, it's been a combo of owning it, but also really difficultly loving the parts of me that I don't love.
Yeah. Being compassionate, because we're all human, we're all flawed. And,
I know. And being, I accept that part of me. No, I don't. Yeah. Like Rumi's guest house. Welcome, but not you. Yeah. Everyone else come in.
Yeah.
So, that's been the practice. So, that impact on other people. Interestingly, your SEO guy, I've met people that are very left brain, very logical, and actually, even though they're not interested in this kind of area, they're not always either the most damaging people, because they're quite innocent, contained.
Yeah.
They don't often mean harm, and because they're often more introverted style, they're less aggressive and all those things, right?
And he'd be one of those people, just very content and happy
he's fine, he's good.
Yeah.
I think, of course, a lot of us who have done the seeking, the pain starts the seeking, right? So if he's more content, as long as he's not hurting anyone else or himself, great. It's like the term soft skills, which I bang on about now because I'm sick of that term, and Andy and I researched it.
Because they're actually really hard.
So hard. So hard. And some people, like your SEO friend, go, I don't need to do that, and they may not. But I've realised with people who don't have good self-awareness but know something's up and are causing damage everywhere, of course they want to call it soft skills because they want to make it something they don't need to
diminish
do.
it.
Because they're scared to go there.
Yes.
Because it's so hard.
Exactly.
So we're playing with new names, Kate. So far we've got foundational skills, crucial skills, future-proofing skills, human skills, superhuman skills. We're workshopping because we're going to retire soft skills. I'm going to meet someone who knows enough people, and they're going to change the name on my behalf, and then we're all going to feel better that it's not soft skills.
Thank goodness, because they're anything but soft. They're actually the most courageous skills, the hardest to develop. They take a lot of courage. If we talk about courage, you have to be very courageous in the face of feedback. They're very hard, and that's why only 10 to 15% of people are self-aware, because they don't want to get uncomfortable and hear the harsh truths that might come at them. And sometimes you only, sometimes you get to a situation in life where you're forced. We talk in the book about Mount Stupid, which is where you climb out, and there's a few political figures in the world at the moment that would be at the top of Mount Stupid, but there's the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't know if you've heard of that. I
have heard of it. And will you explain that to the audience who hasn't heard it, because it's so useful to know?
Yeah, this is where you are so confident of your own competence, but you're actually incompetent to the point, and unself-aware to the point where you can't recognize your own incompetence. So you climb up the top of the mountain and tell everyone how amazing and how wonderful and competent you are, but it's called Mount Stupid because you're actually on top of Mount Stupid, but you can't see it. Everyone else can.
Yes.
Many people can,
yes.
Unless that you're, the people that have been dragged along believing Mount Stupid, the ascent to Mount Stupid. But sometimes you get pushed off Mount Stupid if if life gives you, a sledgehammer, or, I was sort of forced off Mount Stupid to the point where you can no longer not look at your stuff. It's caused enough damage that you realise, okay, I either continue along the path I'm going and I'm suffering and everyone else around me is suffering, or I do the hard work of looking at my shadows, looking at the stuff that's a bit ugly and uncomfortable, and I build some courage and I start getting honest and truthful with myself. And that's the path forward. And so the Wisdom book, you alluded to it already. Wisdom captures the concept of paradox, which is two things can be true at the same time. Two seemingly opposite things can be true and have to be true at the same time. So wisdom is obviously acknowledging all the wisdom you've built up in your life, all the things you know, all the experiences you've had, all the knowledge you've collected. That makes you wise in many aspects. But we're also all dumb in many, many aspects because there's so much we don't know, and we must acknowledge that there's always more we can learn. And the combination of the two, you can be both wise and dumb at the same time, and that's a good thing. In fact, it's necessary.
Yes.
And the Wisdom Way is about acknowledging that life is a paradox. And I'll pull up a couple of the others as examples that I brought with me. But for example, in the Wisdom Way, we talk about different scales of seemingly opposite qualities. So, for example, you can have, and I will pull them up just to make sure I don't get them wrong.
There is a lot of phone use in here by me, so feel free.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm always reading poems and memes, and I always use the phone.
Yeah. So, where are we? Yeah, so most people are stuck on one side or the other. They're either so certain that they're right, that they've stopped learning.
Yes. Or
they're so aware of what they don't know that they can't trust what they do know. And that, it's sort of like a sliding scale, and we're always somewhere on that scale. With the Wisdom Way integrates both. So it's the confidence to say, here's what I think, combined with the humility to say, and I could be wrong, what am I missing?
Yes.
And that's what really effective leaders do. They have the self-assuredness to think that they're making the right decision, but they at the same time have the openness to say, tell me what I'm missing,
Yes.
And that's a
so
sign
beautiful.
Of a really good. Yeah.
It reminds me of the beginner's mind, right? As one of the things they say for us as coaches is that if we become too confident in our ability as a coach and don't come from things with the beginner's mind, we're much less effective. And I have both fallen into that trap, but having done it, seen the weakness of it, seen that if I get overly confident, less open, less willing to be vulnerable, too smart-assy, the session it will not work.
No.
Because I don't have the vulnerability, the openness, I'm coming more from ego than love. So there's just not the space for magical things to happen, right?
Yeah, and the ego is what blocks the other person being able to open, isn't it? And find what they need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the paradox concept is fascinating to me, and that's why, the Wisdom Way is wise and dumb. But they can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of others. If we take, for example, the frankness versus diplomacy paradox. So one of the personality profiling tools that we use in our work with clients is the Harrison assessment. Have you come across that one?
I have, yeah, but I feel like it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that one.
Well, it's basically 12 different paradoxes. And these are so my colleague James Brydon, who's the EQ expert, he has been working with the Harrison assessment for almost a decade and noticing that people, if you imagine these different paradoxes as sliding scales, the idea is that you walk the middle path, you can balance the two tensions. And for example, frankness and diplomacy, you can be really, and that's why we've got Mauro in the book. Before his opening or sledgehammer in life, he was very frank. Okay. And he prided himself on being frank and honest and always telling the truth.
Yes.
But didn't realise that he didn't balance it with diplomacy. And so he's got some classic stories which he shares in the book of where he's made politicians storm out of a room. He's been fired from jobs. He's had quite a few serious situations because he didn't balance his frankness with diplomacy. And the same is true for helpfulness and assertiveness, as you and I know as a coach. It's very challenging sometimes walking that line. You want to be really, really helpful, but you have to be equally assertive. Because if you're not, you're too much like a jellyfish, and people want the strength and they need the assertiveness to have the accountability. So, there's these 12 paradoxes which are seemingly opposite qualities, and the idea is that you learn to walk the middle path. When someone will initially do a Harrison assessment, and I've done mine, you come up, you see where you sit on the sliding scales, and the ones that you're quite far to the left or right, they come with a big risk because, say, for example, you are someone who's always really helpful.
Yes.
And then you're always helpful. You sacrifice your own needs or wants, and then at some point it builds up, and you show what they call a flip behaviour. Then that last drop in the bucket will plop in and you'll explode. That's it, and then you go flip all the way to the other side of the assertiveness scale.
Yes.
And so if you're not walking the middle path of these paradoxes and you're a bit too far to the left or right, then you run the risk of having these flip behaviours, and they are the things that cause damage and ruin relationships or work situations. And so it's becoming aware of where you sit on all of those scales and what are your potential flip behaviours. And I know I have the attention. I do that with my kids all the time. I'm way too complacent or forgiving and allowing, and then it gets to the point where that's it, and I swing completely the other way.
Yes, I did exactly the same thing with Sam last night, and as he was getting into bed, which was much later than I wanted, I said you get kind mum, you push, and then I say that's enough and you don't listen, and then you get bitch mum. And I was like, so I can really relate to what you're saying, right?
And it's hard to walk that middle road. If you're someone who does like to be naturally helpful, it's hard to be assertive on a day-to-day basis, but you've got to sort of practice it.
And that thing we were talking about with, our generation, who all had sort of similar style of parenting and was good in many ways and not good in many ways, I think a lot of us are trying to not make the same mistakes, and in that sometimes are flip too permissive.
Yes, the other way, like the pendulum that swings back the other direction.
Yeah, and we go, okay, I don't want to hurt you the way I felt hurt, so I'm going to be more gentle, I'm going to be this and that. But of course now we have some young people with not great coping skills, because those of us that had to learn coping skills hard ways went, well, my darling baby or babies, I don't want you to suffer. So we try and make life good for them. And I actually said to Sam recently, I said, something came up and I said, I need you to do this. And he goes, I don't want to do it. And I said, love, one of my jobs as your parent is I have to have you build some resilience, and I don't want you to learn it through very difficult ways, but I want you to be able to face life, because, you've had a very easy life and very few challenges. And it was so funny because he goes, I've had a lot of challenges. And I said, what are they, love? And he goes, okay. And we're in the car and he was thinking, and he goes, when I was in grade 1, I didn't really want to do the sleepover. He's 11 now. And I said, I know you didn't, did you? And he goes, no, I was very scared. I said, I get that. Have you got any other examples for me? And he goes, No, not really. And I said, so do you think that might not be quite a full bucket of experiences to learn resilience? He's laughing, like, all right, you got me. But
that's a self-aware conversation, though. That's,
yeah. I mean, yeah, he's, I don't know where he came from, Kate, but he's got it going on. And I think that's probably partly because of us and partly because this generation with their schooling and with their parenting, as I watch he and his friends, they actually have wonderful levels of awareness, emotional intelligence, but they do seem to have some weaknesses around resilience, strength, what reality is in terms of there's certain facts of life and there's certain things that are okay to feed back and are still appropriate, and all those things. So, but yeah, that scale is fantastic. So I can feel it personally, and where it's more in balance and where it's not. It's so funny because if you think this podcast used to be called 50-50, and I always said I'm 51%, 49% that, 51% confident, 49% not. I don't know if it's as pretty as sitting on the right part of the scale. I suspect I do in some areas and really don't in others. But my saying in life is there's good and bad in everything. And I love the feeling of what you've described in terms of, if I think of the beginner's mind, if I think of Stephen Bodian saying to me when I said to him, but even if people are awakened, they must still be human, right? And he said, you're allowed to be human and be awake. Like we're not actually aiming to be a saint. And I was like, oh, I forget that. I was brought up Catholic, we're meant to be saints. So there's a comfort in what you're saying about being able to balance it. There certainly will be a level of difficulty, but actually there's real ease in what you're offering around what does it look like if you allow yourself to have both elements and not make what you consider in quotes the weak one from your ego wrong.
That's right. And we could think of something as a strength like Mauro with the frankness, for example, but without its balancing partner, it's not a strength, it's a liability. Right? Yeah, and that's sort of what Harrison's really good at identifying where you sit on those. But the book, we don't sort of go into depth about which diagnostic tool you want to use for figuring, and sometimes you can just feel into it, like you said, like where you sit on the spectrum of things if you start sort of observing yourself.
Yes.
But what we love, the reason we wanted to put this book out, because we do believe the path can be simple and it doesn't need to involve complex diagnostic tools, and it just it involves embodying these three qualities, which you've already alluded to a couple of them.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this is the simple path to emotional intelligence that we're talking about, which is embracing three qualities. Number one, curiosity. Yeah, and so when I was talking about that LSI test where, there was what I thought about myself and what other people thought of me, the way to heal that is curiosity. It's like, wow, so what are they picking up that I'm not realizing that I'm doing? And I did have to get curious. I went and sat with all of them. So after I got over myself and stopped crying, it took me a couple of days.
Yeah.
Then I invited all of my staff to, just for one-to-ones, okay, can you tell me more about this? Like, when do I do that thing? And it's really hard.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying. It's not a soft skill.
No,
You've got to be brave.
Really brave.
It all comes down to courage, because you have to sit there and really, oh gosh, didn't realize, and I had to say, I didn't realize I do that. And then they feel bad. No, this is good. I need to know what's going on here so I can become a better person and better leader or whatever. And James, in the book, we actually put James's first LSI too, and it's even more stark than mine, but it's such a good visual tool for people to understand that gap between what you think, how you think you show up and how others perceive you showing up. And bridging that gap is the purpose of this book. So curiosity is the number one quality. And I love the word curious. It's been one of my favourite words for such a long time, because when I'd have an argument with someone and they'd sort of put the walls down, and I do as well, I remember saying to my ex-husband at the time, it would really help me if you could just get curious about instead of telling me I'm wrong, or it would be really nice if you got curious, and he could get triggered by that statement. But I used to crave him wanting to know more about that. Like, just tell me a bit more about, so you're experiencing this. And I think in relationships we shut down way too quick. We don't get
Yes.
curious with each other.
Yes.
And say, gosh, I didn't know I was doing that. So when do I do that? What triggers it? How do you observe? Like, what is the lead up to that? Or, and
Yeah.
curiosity just opens up such a whole new pathway for conversation.
Oh, yeah. And even the word curious has a real lightness and safety
Yes,
about it.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not about
right or wrong.
Right or wrong. That's it. It's not about having to protect whether one's right or wrong. Curiosity, it's free and open and light, and it can take quite heavy information and convert it into something that's much easier to look at through that lens.
Yes. And the opposite of curiosity would be judgmental and dogmatic.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is what we tend to do if we're in conflict.
Yeah, of course. Protect.
Yeah, the defences come up, the ego comes up.
And then if you believe in Imago theory, which certainly my husband and I have lived out, you marry often someone that's the perfect trigger for whatever happened in your life that didn't work for you. And it's an opportunity to heal it, Kate. Wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
But actually, like if I look at our marriage, which has had wonderful highs and lows, there has absolutely been on both sides this opportunity to look at the shadow, look at the patterns. But of course, that judgmental or dogmatic or bring the shutters down, because the parts that are most vulnerable have the risk of being exposed, most vulnerable from the ego's point of view,
yes,
not
that's right.
really vulnerable, but feels vulnerable. I said to Andy recently, with everything I've learned and done, I said, you're basically my great white whale in terms of doing what I like to think I can do and generally do in the world consistently with you, because I find so many people will say the same to me, their intimate relationships. Even Stephen Bodian said, I said, how do you practice these days when you're so experienced? Do you have peers? And he said, look, I have friends, but to be honest, my greatest practice is relationships. So, it's a if I think of bringing curiosity into those moments, even the word helps me. If I was to recall that word as we're arguing about something and go, okay, Tamara, be curious, it kind of takes so much gravity out of it, so much ego out of it. It's a very good tool to be able to use as a word.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's a magical word.
It is a magical word.
So that's the first one, and you've already touched on the second one, which is vulnerability.
Ah.
Yeah, and we all know Brene Brown's work has been, pivotal in opening up that conversation, because vulnerability previously, like for us Gen Xers growing up, it was perceived as a weakness, right? You don't get vulnerable. That's... Yeah, but thanks to Brene Brown and others, now we know vulnerability is the greatest strength, right? And curiosity requires vulnerability. Yeah,
it does. And when you said the greatest leader, we talk about Raven and French in our leadership training, and referent power. And referent power fundamentally, well, it's where people respect the leader, but the respect comes from openness, vulnerability, willing to admit mistakes. So that misunderstanding that the leader that says, okay, I understand that, tell me more, or I'm sorry I made a mistake, the misunderstanding that creates a weak leader where it's such an unusually strong leader. Like you said, not that's checking every 2 seconds, did I do okay? That's very stressful for everyone.
Yes.
But someone that goes, look, I'm fundamentally getting it right, I think, but tell me what I've missed, tell me how I'm impacting you negatively that I might not be able to see.
That's right.
Is there a new idea about this that I haven't thought about?
Yeah.
It's so easy for me to understand the power of that, but I do get why it's very easy for people to think of vulnerability as weakness, because like soft skills, then they can just sweep it away and go, vulnerability.
Yeah. Yes. Like we know certain world figures at the moment that refuse to be vulnerable or admit mistakes, and it is that combination of curiosity and vulnerability that makes you such a powerful, effective leader, because you're acknowledging the wisdom, and the third quality is comfort with uncertainty.
Come on. These are no joke qualities, are they?
No.
Like that third one's a doozy.
Yeah, it's hard, but this is where it does cross into spiritual land, and you could also call that faith or trust or surrender or, And everyone has different language about it. And James, who's the founder of the concept of wisdom, tells a story about how he was coming back on an airplane from Chiang Mai, where he'd been at a big conference on the Harrison assessment, actually. So he'd spent a whole week being vulnerable and getting feedback and having very candid, open conversations. And he was sitting on the plane coming back, and it was just doodling on his pad. And he said, well, where do we all start? So ignorance. We sort of start in ignorance, right? We don't know where we are. We don't know anything. We don't know things. And then we accumulate knowledge, and then from that knowledge we extract meaning, and from that meaning we find purpose. And then he just started going on this trail. And he previously called himself an atheist. He'd say, I didn't believe in God, came from very rough neighbourhood in England. Football was his way out of poverty. So really, tough upbringing.
Yeah.
Didn't believe in God. And then was sitting there doodling, and then, okay, well, what comes after meaning? What comes after purpose? And then he sat there, and then the word intuition popped out. So he wrote intuition. So, right, well, what's intuition? And then as he was reflecting on that word, his hand just wrote love. And he said he was in the middle of this aeroplane, and he just completely fell apart, started bawling his eyes out.
Wow.
Just this lifetime of grief, or just he didn't know what it was or where it came from, but he suddenly felt this love. And he said, I don't believe in God, but he said, I can't tell you what I have now, but I have this unshakable sense of faith.
Yes.
I was like, wow. And he said, I'm comfortable with uncertainty now. And the amazing thing, the reason he wanted to write this book, and I've collaborated with him because I love writing, and I'm just,
Yeah.
Collaborating is more fun than slogging it out on your own, isn't it?
Yeah. And also it's a passion area for you. So it's perfect that you came together.
Yeah. And Mauro with the relational stuff. It's fascinating the way we bring it all, the different angles together. But he said that broke something open in him when he got back to Perth, and he said there was this lightness, and things just started coming to him, flowing for him, like you've said about this podcast. It's just flowed for you. And he'd go to a conversation with a client, and he'd totally not try to pitch or do anything and just sit. And then the client eventually would say, so how do I work with you? And he'd sort of be taken by surprise. Yeah, I want to work with you, and where do I sign up? And he said things have just started flowing. And when he's got that faith and he's let go, and he's curious and he's vulnerable and he's just open to uncertainty but comfortable with uncertainty. And his wife recalls walking into the kitchen one night, and they've got their evening routine, and apparently he turned around and just grabbed her and said, do you want to dance? And she said, there's no music. He said, it doesn't matter. And they just started swaying. And she said, I can't explain how he's changed, but he's just different. And James says it's different in a good way, because I just feel so free and open and relaxed. And the more I am that way, the more life flows and is easy and effortless for me. He's got more clients booked than he's ever had before.
Yes.
Things are flowing, and it's all, and so that's his passion, it's these qualities. If you just really focus on being curious. So if you're in the middle of a conflict or a difficult conversation, as you said, having that anchor of curiosity. Okay, what happens if I get curious here and try to understand what's going on for them? Or what happens if I get vulnerable and say, I can see you're struggling. I'm actually feeling really, like ABC at the moment. Get vulnerable. But that takes courage, because you've got to be comfortable with the uncertain outcome if you practice those qualities. But it's almost like the more you let go and open, it creates space for things to sort of resolve. And so that's the wisdom way, is walking those three qualities. And it's about, we sort of say the paradox scales can help, but it's really just about being more mindful in life, and in every situation checking in with yourself, how am I performing on those three qualities?
Yes.
And if you're not comfortable with uncertainty, if you're someone who likes to control or plan, or there's a certain level of planning that's, healthy.
Yeah.
But there's a letting go that often, and having that comfort with uncertainty that can open up more opportunities than you ever could plan for. Do you know what I mean?
I really know what you mean. And do you know what's so interesting about that faith, or I literally can't think of the word, being comfortable with uncertainty, right? The reason that is so interesting at the moment, the last piece to camera I did that came out by the time this comes out some weeks ago, was the title was The Terrifying Freedom of the Unknown. And the thumbnail language that we put on was, Will you take the first step? And I haven't even spoken to Dan about this, but it had probably 10 or 15 times as many views on YouTube as my normal piece to camera would have.
Isn't that interesting?
Right? I was sharing in that about, like it sounds, this idea of being able to be with the unknown, and my recent journey of, or probably since the podcast started, but certainly of the last few months, has been really this very strong unknown. And because my focus has been on what I actually want, and it's taken me ages to realise, what I actually want is self-love, self-peace, and creating from that, there's been this long period of unknown, because all the things I would do as automatic, all the things that I would do for my ego, all the things I would do to get recognition the way I used to get them, haven't been a match, because intuitively I felt like, no, this is what you're meant to be doing. But that faith in the unknown, I talk about it in that episode. I always thought I was a faithful person and a trusting person. Really, I haven't been. And I've always had a natural optimism, like a natural, don't worry, it'll work out. And I love that about myself, because it means I enjoy life a lot. I just assume everything will be okay.
Yes.
I don't mind that as a belief system. But this period of time of both challenging the strongest support I had of my ego by stopping training and stopping getting the feedback from that, had no idea the impact that was going to have, never occurred to me. I was just like, I'll be right, because that's how I do everything. I'll be right. Oh, what the hell's wrong with me? And it's like, hang on, you got, for 25 years, you had very regular feedback that you're awesome. You've had months really with very little of that. It's the right path, but it's unknown. Where's it going to lead?
Is it going to... ego's not getting that reinforcement.
Horrible. I totally get why, from an ego point of view, whether it be a life change like I'm in, or whether it be from being vulnerable with another person, this unknown element, it's like when you talked about Dunning-Kruger, when someone's very insecure, they will behave the most sure.
Correct.
So when I help people in classes deal with dominant people they're dealing with, I'll say, listen, the trick you need to know is that they're normally far more insecure than you. Do not tell them you know that.
No, because they're doing everything to hide it.
And you will not get the reaction you're after. But the most certain people, like you're saying, are massively insecure. And people get mad with me when I say, I have a level of compassion for Trump. And I get why they get mad at me, because he has such an incredibly and massively damaging impact. But I see him as someone that...
a wounded child.
Absolutely. And for some reason, got to the position he's got, is doing the damage he's doing. But I don't believe he can actually do any better. He is so damaged and so in whatever personality disorder as a non-psychologist he's running, there's nothing else to be done there. But do you know what was interesting to me, and I talked about it here or somewhere, when he was, when he first met the mayor of New York, who's been widely celebrated, before he met him, he was doing his usual thing about how terrible this fellow was. Then they met and they had a press conference straight after, and Trump says, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And I thought he has executed the experiment I've always wanted to do with Trump, is if you're a clever enough, emotionally intelligent, open, aware person, you would have a more reasonable reaction from this fellow because of the way you're able to lovingly come at him, understand what's happening there. And that fellow, I believe, was able to do that, because there was no reason why he should have said after their meeting, I like this fellow, but the New York mayor...
Is it Mandani?
That's it. Yeah. Was able to, I believe, able to be the things we're talking about and have a safety in himself to speak to this fellow in a way that had a good impact on this fellow that really in reality, nothing has a good impact on. He doesn't live in reality at all. He never experiences true love or joy or freedom ever.
That's right.
And that's what I say to people when they get upset. If I say, listen, if you've got someone you're dealing with who I call unreasonable and they're at the risk of weaponising your vulnerability, because you do have to be careful how you choose to be vulnerable.
That's right.
And they'll say, well, they're not suffering at all. Or they're not even suffering. And I say, actually, if you think about it, if someone's got that level of ego running and that level of protection running, they don't even get to live an actual real life. Their whole life is made up by their ego. It's all about just protecting
Trying to fill the void. And
there's no real love. There's no real freedom. There's no real joy. And when I say it that way, people can often get, oh, yeah, that would suck.
Yeah.
It sucks. And they do tremendous damage to other people. So those that I think there's people that will not be able to get what we're talking about ever. And then there's many, 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 many more people who, with the things you're talking about, curiosity, vulnerability, willingness to be with uncertainty, would get a huge amount for themselves and for others from reading this. And what you're saying, I believe, is so true about these concepts don't need to be complex. It's simple and hard.
Yes. Simple but not easy. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we wanted to make this book a fun read. So we got very vulnerable and have shared all our stories of where we have caused damage to other people or to ourselves through a lack of those qualities. And then so we tell the story getting quite vulnerable. And then at the end we sort of say we lacked these qualities here, here and here, and this was the impact. And yes, we wanted to share the framework, show how simple it is. And then I think we've shared 7 stories about where we've each experienced, going through this in not the optimal way.
Yeah, well, one of the things I think the last time we spoke here, I shared it with you. I've certainly shared it with you personally, that one of the things I've most appreciated about you is your ability to be vulnerable and be honest, and that's what I've also tried to do. And I have found it both almost a compulsion in that it's felt like the thing to do, so I've kept doing it, but it's a big deal. It's very rare, and a little bit like your the book you wrote about yourself and your life. It's so. I remember messaging you after reading it, and then we talked about it here, and I was like, whoa! Like I thought I was willing to be vulnerable.
Oh, I know.
That is next level, man. But when the thing is, when people do let me know about this and what works for them about it, the most common comment will be, "I needed that. Thank you for not making me feel alone."
Exactly.
But also, I also think if I think about when I won't hear from people, that makes sense too, because if I have been able to share something that they have got something from, it can be a very personal thing, a very intimate thing. Even people I've coached before, I'll say, oh, will you give me some feedback about the coaching? And sometimes they won't, even though I know they've had a great time. And when I think about after it, curiously, if I think about afterwards, I think, oh, they can't actually share anything about that without feeling too exposed.
Yes.
Because it's been quite deep work.
Yeah.
And quite personal, and they've been willing to be quite vulnerable. And they don't want to talk about that publicly, obviously.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. Which is challenging with the work you do, counsellors and psychologists, because people don't really want the world to know that they've had counselling or help,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, there's that combination there. Before we finish up, and of course, tell me if there's other aspects you'd like to talk about, I just want to go back to this idea of trust or faith, because it's something that I am literally practicing. I have had moments of revelation around it at different times. I haven't had it at a level of stability, really. I've had periods where I've had a level of stability and thought, I know it's all okay. I know what the bigger plan is or my version of it, but it ebbs and flows. And then I think from a religious point of view, you'll have people that won't like the idea of the language around faith or trust. My experience of what it is when I feel that way is less about any kind of cliched or religious godlike figure, but the idea of some sort of universal plan or universal space. The word I will often use is, what would love do? That feeling of love, even as I say it now, that feeling of love is when I'm faithful. It's that I feel that love and trust in that. I literally have a voice running all the time. I've only just been able to start to listen to it because it's much quieter than the egoic, anxious voice. And my quiet voice is quite often saying things like, I know what you should do next. It's okay. Don't worry. This is right.
Yes.
Yes, you're okay to be doing what you're doing. Remember what we said you were going to do?
Yeah.
But the other voice like, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
And then I go, hang on, you, hang on.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say? And I realise actually this wisdom part that we're talking about is there, the quiet voice is there, the possibility to have faith in it is there. But for me, at the moment anyway, it is literally a daily practice to come back to a centred way of being in love, at ease, trusting.
Yes.
The very popular, it's the number one show in America, Shrinking with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, I love it.
I think he calls it the field. So his character says access the field, and that's what we're talking about, right?
That's right, yeah. And the field, faith to me comes from believing at a deep level that the field is benevolent. It's this, as you said, all-loving force that's gently guiding everything. And just because you might experience some hardship doesn't mean it's malicious or it's all around growth. It's all guiding you, helping you grow in the ways you need to grow to constantly become a better human is how I believe it to be. Yeah.
Well, depending on why we think we're here, and I often say, as we discuss here, we're in such a wonderful position to even be able to consider these questions, right? Because we've got
very
so many.
Luxurious, yeah.
Oh, so lucky, right? So lucky to be worried about the things we worry about because the basics are covered.
That's right.
Thank you. As I look up to the God I said I don't really believe in. Old habits, right? We spent a lot of time in church together. But this idea of this sense of, when depending on what you believe in, I've always believed that, especially as an adult, I've thought, well, my job is to do the very things you've been talking about today. It's been to cause the least harm to others, learn how to love and accept myself. The work I've done with Lockie had me realise that I had to flip around the story. So I was always trying to be loving to other people, emptying the cup, doing the flip reaction you talked about. Really got to the point of exhaustion. And part of the reason I didn't train for a while was I was just too worn out. But also when I did the work with him and realised, oh, hang on, if I love and accept myself, I'm not going to drain energy from other people needing it from them.
Yes.
I'm not going to do things in a sort of munted is the word that comes to mind, eloquent, in that munted way of, oh, let me help you, Kate, but actually I just want you to tell me I'm awesome. Or, oh, I don't feel good today. And that's okay to say, but, in a manipulative way or because if we don't have that void in ourselves filled by ourselves and the work we do and our self-understanding and all the rest, we are always going to be either, best case, a drain on other people. Worst case, we're going to have the impact on the world that Trump does. And, of course, some people listening might love him because,
they're thinking he's having a good impact. Yeah.
Great impact,
And maybe two things can be true.
Maybe two things can be true. My dad's pretty good about talking about him because he'll say, look, I understand what he's doing here, here and here. And actually he'll highlight things for me where I can be too binary and just think every move he makes is terrible. Actually, that's another weakness to go,
that's right.
what's the truth? It'll be somewhere in between.
In the middle,
I suspect it's not bang in the middle, but there will be things that will be having a good impact through what he's doing.
There's enough in it that has a positive enough effect that some people believe it's the right thing to do. So,
that's right. And also, if we look at the universal field, how could this happen and this particular world circumstance happen, or any of the horrors that happen in the world? For those of us that have the luxury to observe them and learn from them, I think one of the things it does is have us go, well, what's our version of being him day to day? Where do we cause damage to people? We're all running from our ego. We all cause damage from it. We all think we've got good intentions, but often the impact of people is terrible on one another.
And the more extreme you are in your views, the more blind you are to a lot of things, is how I see it. And it's the finger pointing forward with the three pointing back at you. So whenever you're pointing the fingers so strongly, it's highlighting something in you that's unbalanced.
One of my friends years and years ago, Mel, hi Mel, one of my darling friends, we did some landmark together, and she was ahead of me in the courses at the time, and there was a woman we worked with and I couldn't stand her, and I said, I can't stand her, and this is all the reason. And she said, what is it about her that you can't be within yourself? Oh, that line is a killer.
It's so true though, isn't it?
It's so true. It's so hard to get on board with. But it is so true. Even this morning I was having an argument with my husband and I said to him, I need you to have a look at this. And pretty much as soon as I said it, I thought, all right, where are you doing that, me, where you want him to change because you're uncomfortable with your approach? And there was stuff to see. Because I'm not bothered by anyone doing stuff I'm not bothered by, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, if I'm peaceful with something, like, hey, you do you, boo.
Yeah.
But if I'm not, I'm like, hang on.
Yeah.
What's that behaviour? Because that's not cool.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Is there anything else we should say? Is there anything we've missed? I'm getting a copy. I'm totally on board.
Yeah. No, I mean, we talk through the costs of not being self-aware, and that's where we bring in a lot of our stories, because there is a cost, and I think that's a lot of people say, well, why would you bother with emotional intelligence and self-awareness? And it's because there is a cost to the gap that we talked about. And so we just sort of step everything out in a very short, succinct way. It's a shortish book, only 30,000 words, because we don't want it to be laboursome or whatever, laborious. We don't want it to be...
it's not a match for the theme, is it? If it was too long or complex or detailed.
No, that's right. It's light, and we want people to get the message quickly, and we've got some exercise and just guidance on how you can walk the wisdom way. But the majority of it's sharing through stories, so it's...
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love it. Can you please tell me... with my up and downness around my faith and trust, is there anything you as you or you from the book would recommend to have a practice that stabilises it more for me in this time of unknown?
Around having faith?
Yeah, like what do you do to have it be more constant, or if you notice you might have it constant, it sounds like since
I
James.
Don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you have that brings it back in for you?
Oh, yeah. So lately it's been Abraham Hicks. I don't know.
Yeah, we've spoken about that.
Yeah. And that's very woo-woo for those that, But
that's okay, because it is woo-woo, but what you've helped me say, as soon as you said that, what I realised is the thing that works for me and will work for a lot of people is what is their version of inspiration that can help them remember it's okay.
Yes.
So for you and I, it might be more woo-woo. For someone else, it might be their religion.
Yes.
For someone else, it might be gardening.
Yep.
For someone else, it might be a nice poem. For someone else, it might be puppy videos, right? Or a meme that makes them laugh.
Yeah, and at the core of all those things that you just mentioned is feeling good. So keep asking the question, how can I feel good in this moment? What's something I can do to help me feel good in this moment, whether it's go sit in the sun by the riverside or just something. And I'm not great at doing that, but I do. Sometimes it's just getting a nice cup of tea, or it's taking a break and watching puppy memes on Instagram or whatever.
Yes. The other one I think of is thinking of what you're grateful for.
Yes,
I have
absolutely.
one of those videos coming out soon, and I talk about the irony of gratitude. It's such a mean thing that you have to get to wherever you want to get yourself before it happens externally often.
Yes.
So take a holiday and you'll get pregnant. How mean. Don't think about getting pregnant and you'll get pregnant.
Yes.
How mean.
Yeah.
Love yourself first if you want other people to love you.
Yeah.
How mean.
Yeah.
Feel free and freedom will come to you.
That's
oh,
right.
Come on. Like
Yes.
it all comes back to this idea of it starts with us, right?
Exactly.
It actually starts with us. Nothing's going to solve anything for us.
No, and I suppose to answer your question, that's where I always come back to. It's where am I out of alignment? Where am I not where am I distorting my field, if you want to call it like that. So I had a car accident on Friday, and I was having such a good day up to that point.
Yep.
And sometimes just bad things happen and it's really frustrating. And other times it's like, actually, there's a lot here that this was an unnecessary accident and it happened because I haven't had boundaries with my kids. And it was just this whole thing of highlighting to me where I'm out of alignment with what I need and where I'm not, where I'm out of balance. And
the thing that I think always works, the tap on the shoulder, the hit in the head, that you get run over by a bus.
Yeah.
And I try to hear the taps on the shoulders.
That's right.
Sometimes I get hit on the head. I haven't been run over many times because I'm like, okay, I'll hear the tap. I'll feel the tap, you know. But yeah, I get that. And I also get that when something wonderful has happened, sometimes our ego will go, well, I've got to balance that.
That's right.
I've got to thermostat it back to. So I interviewed Stephen Brydon, which was the highlight of my career here so far, as someone I admire so much.
Yeah.
And the next day I broke my toe.
Oh, that's right.
And I was very disappointed because I thought, what are you trying to do there? A bit of balancing? And I thought, all right, whatever happened, happened. And then I had a very easy time with my broken toe because I went, I'm not going to make this any worse.
Yeah.
I've done the cliche broken toe or foot that women tend to love. I've got to Louise L. Hay that shit, man. I don't know what's going on.
Right, yeah.
But it was perfect. Day after the excitement, break my toe.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
But lessons.
Yeah, and a girlfriend reminded me of Gay Hendricks' book, The Upper Limit, how we tend to self-sabotage if things get too good.
That's the next one for me.
Yeah.
I love thermostat stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
And it's frustrating, you know, when I was just thinking, I feel like I've learned all this stuff. Why do I have to keep learning it? You know,
me too. Don't fall for my one. I'm done now.
Yeah.
That's my favourite thing.
Yeah.
I do something big. I do something brave. I do something loving, something I've been scared of. I go, well, now I'm sorted. And I go, what do you think is going to happen, Tamara? You take this action and you become God, because that's basically when you're disappointed that the next thing's going to happen. It's like, you know, you're still a human on this earth making 1,000 mistakes a day, man. But I love the idea of I'm done.
Yeah.
Because I think we've worked very hard at this for a long time and it's taken a lot.
And part of it for me is not working so hard at it. It's just the ease and the letting go and the trusting and the, you know, maybe I just have to stop efforting so much.
Yes, and the fundamental belief around that, we are worthy as we are, even if we didn't do one more useful thing.
That's right.
That is the lesson. We are worthy even if we don't do one more useful thing. We are whole, complete and perfect. Sometimes I remember that. Sometimes I don't.
Yes. That's
How
right.
cool, man.
Yeah.
So excited. What an awesome book. What a lovely conversation, but that's no surprise.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. It was lovely to have you here.
This is my first chat about the book. So,
Hey,
so
hooray.
thank you for that. Yeah.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we'll send snippets and shorts and things you can use in any of your promotions. And, honoured to be the first person you've talked about with it.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure there'll be many
James
more.
was very excited, yeah.
Oh, how cool. Give him my love and say congratulations.
Will do.
Cool. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you, Tam.
Cheers.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. And if you like what you've heard about me, you can see more here.